is Totally 80s, the podcast dedicated to the music of the greatest decade ever. So, turn up your Walkman, loosen that scrunchie, and get ready to talk 80s with your host, Lyndsey Parker.
Hi, I'm Lyndsey Parker from Yahoo Entertainment, and welcome to Totally 80s. We love hearing from you, so why not take a second to follow us at Totally 80s on Facebook and Instagram, or email us your comments and show ideas to podcast@totally80s.com. So we know in the 80s, people marched to the beat of their own drum, and that certainly can be said of my two guests today, two of the world's most influential and in-demand drummers, really of any decade, who are joining me today to discuss the best drummers of the 1980s. First, we have an industry titan who began playing with John Mellencamp in 1980, back when he was probably still John Cougar, maybe even Johnny Cougar still. It was a fruitful partnership that spanned 17 years, 10 albums, and this guy has worked with pretty much everyone: John Bon Jovi, Meatloaf, Bob Seger, Ringo Starr, Bruce Springsteen, Neil Diamond, Sting, Celine Dion, and many, many more. Please welcome to the show, Kenny Aronoff.
What's up? I figured you'd be saying park your car at Harvard Square.
Yes, my mother is from Boston, but I am an LA girl through and through. And speaking of LA, we have a man whose really whole life changed in the late 80s when he moved to LA, and his Myth Habit shortly thereafter joined one of the biggest bands to emerge from the 80s LA scene, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But when he's not touring stadiums with them, he is a go-to player as well for everyone from Post Malone to Halsey, Miley Cyrus, Ozzy Osbourne, the list goes on. Welcome, Chad Smith. Hello, Chad.
Hello, everyone. So nice to be here.
It's really Kenny. Nice to have you. You guys know each other.
Lyndsey.
We know each other because we used to host a show together on SiriusXM, Volume West, which is all about LA. And you guys know each other because, I mean, I know there was some kind of like ceremonial torch passing or sticks passing through Chicken Foot, the super group that Chad did with Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony. But you've both played in Chicken Foot together with Joe Satriani as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, Chad's the one that hooked me up. So, Chad had to go back to his small day job, the Chili Peppers.
I know how that feels.
So Chad, correct me if I'm wrong. So
yes,
Chad said, well, you know who you should get? You should get Kenny Aronoff. He'll replace me. So Sammy calls up and goes, Sammy, hey, listen, I don't really need to make money. I just want to have fun, and I have a lot of fun with Chad. Chad's a lot of fun. I went, all right. I said, Chad and I both hit real hard. Chad's a rocker and a funky drummer. I'm a rocker and I can play funky too. Chad is way funnier than me, but I'm better looking.
And it's a toss-up. It depends on your needs. It's a toss-up.
So I said,
see, you're funny.
Well, that was one funny. So I said, why don't we just get together? Because it was seriously, Sammy's like, I just want to have fun. I said, I'm fun. I says, why don't we get together and have some fun?
That's what we're going to do today. We're going to get together and have some fun. So this is a fun fact that you'll be interested in to prepare for this, to talk about the best drummers of the 80s, which of course includes yourselves, but it's a long and illustrious list. I looked at Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest drummers of all time, and you guys are neck and neck. Kenny, you are at number 66.
Yeah.
Chad, you are at number 64. You are separated by Sly. You're separated by Sly Dunbar. He's at 65, but you are neck and neck. According to Rolling Stone.
See? Wow. We're like Siamese twins with Sly Dunbar in between us.
That's kind of like an Oreo reversed.
The reversed Oreo of drummers.
Yeah.
Obviously, that list spanned, all decades, but there were a lot of 80s people on there, which we'll get to and talk about. But I want to talk just a little bit about, it seems like there's a real mutual admiration, love fest between when drummers get together. I've witnessed it firsthand when Chad and I have interviewed other drummers together. I am witnessing it firsthand right now. Is there like a certain kind of bond, even almost like an underdog bond between drummers when they get together?
Well, I mean, we definitely are the guy in the back. I mean, there's something, we're not the lead singer. So and we're always used to being, the joke, all the musicians, and then there's the drummer. So there's something about, we're in a position of, we're like, you know what we're like? We're like the catcher in baseball or the center in football. I mean, does anybody know the catcher or the center? No, but they control the game. And so there's kind of a mutual understanding from that perspective. A very important, you can't play without a drummer. I mean, but yet you're not the lead singer. So I think maybe we have a mutual understanding, especially emotionally, of what it's like to be that guy.
Well, you say you can't play without the drummer, but even though there are some great drummers that came up in the 80s that we're going to talk about, including yourselves, the 80s was also a big time for drum machines. How do you guys feel about drum machines? Obviously, the rise of electronic music, hip hop in the 80s was big. Like when drum machines started to become a thing in the 80s, were you guys worried?
I think it's great. Nothing can replace, certainly live, of watching and the power and just what Kenny alluded to, like you're the engine, you're the heart, you're the thing that's the most reliable thing in the band. And I think that nothing, I didn't feel threatened that like, oh, drum machines are going to take over. But I have to say, the first time I went and saw Depeche Mode play in the 80s, early, mid 80s at Pine Knob Music Theater. I know Kenny's been there many times, outside of Detroit, and there was no drummer on stage. And the people are going bananas. And I'm like, what are you looking at? I mean, spin around, and then he spins around again, and it's cool. It's a good move. I love it. But after like the third or fourth time, but I like the physicality and the seeing that and the connection of the musicians off the drummer, I think is really important. So I never felt like threatened in that kind of way. I like Human League and Blue Monday and all those great drum machine songs and the Lynn drum. And Ken, I know, has worked with lots and lots of drum machines. But it's nothing will replace that excitement, certainly of seeing and being part of a live situation with a drummer. So yeah, I mean, look, the Lynn drum is not going to spin around like Tommy Lee. It's not going to have the same effect.
I agree with Chad, but talking about the Lynn one, that actually had a freakazoid moment because I'm trying to fit into the Mellencamp band because the first record, I didn't have enough experience making records. They wanted to get the record done quick, so they hired 2 session guys, and I was devastated. I mean, I just couldn't be. So 2 years later, we're making American Fool, and I walk in one day, and the co-producer has this metal box. I went, wow, what's that, Don? He says, oh, yeah, the Bee Gees are using this next door. We're going to try to use it on this song that we're having trouble with, that's not even going to make it on the record, called Jack and Diane. It's a Lynn 1 drum machine. I'm like, drum machine? They replaced drummers. Oh, my God. I'm out of a job again. I got replaced. I'm like, what? So I grabbed the machine. I programmed basically what I was playing on the drums, handed it to them. But what I was thinking when I handed it back to them was, what's happening? I mean, In the Air Tonight was already in, and I'm going like, oh my God, are the drummers getting replaced? I mean, I was kind of confused and freaking out. I'd get fired again. All of a sudden, 2 hours later, Mellencamp said, hey, Aronoff, we need a drum thing, a drum solo right here after the second chorus. I'm going, on a ballad? I'm going like, see, what would Buddy Rich do? He'd say, this song sucks. But anyway, I'd say like, are you kidding? And so the whole time we're getting this mammoth drum sound because the drums used to be in small vocal booths and now it's in this big room. And John's like, I want to blow every drum. Thank God. He said, I want to blow every drum sound off the radio. I want this drum sound to be the biggest drum sound ever. That experience was bittersweet. So the drum machine, exactly what Chad said, it was cool for a second. And then when John was smart enough to realize, let's put some human feel into this thing. And there it is. Right there. That song, if it just been the drum machine, would have been boring. And then you added the human element and bam, you had the best of both worlds.
Well, it's interesting because, Chad, you mentioned Tommy Lee and kind of like the Hab Trail, like roller coaster, kind of that. And you, Kenny, mentioned In the Air Tonight, Phil Collins. So before we start talking about a lot of specific drummers, I want to talk about just kind of like drum production in the 80s. I've called it the Phil Collins effect. If you've heard that song he produced for Annie Frid from ABBA, Something's Going On, like it's like, you know, like the drums were very loud in the 80s. There were drum solos, all these music videos of the metal bands like Poison stuff and Motley Crue, like drum risers and rotating drums and spinning drums in the air. Like, I feel like it was a good time in the 80s because like I feel like the drums kind of came to the forefront, like visually and definitely orally as well.
Look, the drums, we may be a little biased, but no, name me, Lyndsey, and you know a lot about music. You're very smart.
Oh, thank you.
And you know a lot about music. In any era, name me, there isn't, I shouldn't say name me, but the band is only as good as its drummer. There's not a great band with a okay drummer. There's just not.
Yeah.
It's just, that's just how it goes. And I'm not saying it because I'm a drummer. I'm just saying every great band. And so I have a little list. I didn't go to rollingstone.com. I got
I feel should have put you guys higher.
Can I put a couple out there? Let me put a couple.
Absolutely. Let's go. Let's start the list going. I'm curious.
I have Phil Collins, of course.
Yeah.
What an amazing drummer.
Are you curious where Rolling Stone put him?
Phil Collins has got to be in the top 10.
43, my friend. 43 of all time, though. Not okay. But go on. Phil Collins is on your list for sure.
Again,
Explain.
Rolling Stone, whatever. But we're talking 80s. Phil Collins, you know, that's when his solo work came into the forefront. And you got to remember, and Kenny was there. In 1984, 83, 4, 5, Phil Collins was like, you know, In the Air Tonight. Obviously, everybody knows the drum fill, that backwards reverb sound that he had, that when you hear it, you go, Phil Collins. And so for a drummer to have his own signature, not only his style of play, which is the way he plays is so very unique to him, but the sound that goes with it. Like the only other there's a few guys, but like John Bonham, of course, you know, it's him, his sound, his way he plays. But like Phil Collins, for sure, is, you know, you just know it. So like in the 80s when he had his thing going and that ABBA song, like that was amazing. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly.
So badass. Not fancy.
No.
Oh, technical. The sound and the groove. And that's the most, you know, that's the thing. That's how you get a gig. You know, you just gotta, it's not a what makes a drummer really great. Is it how technical he is? Or does he play for the song? Is he a Ringo Starr? Or is he a Buddy Rich? And, you know, that's just a matter of taste. It's what you like. So, but going to the 80s, you know, there'll be a lot of haters. Tommy Lee, you know, they don't like celebrity drummers and his whole thing.
He was the first kind of like drummer I can remember as a kid thinking of as a rock star, like being as famous as the other people in the band, as well known, maybe even more well known than other people in the band.
I mean,
it wasn't just his drumming. It wasn't just his drumming.
Like he's incredibly in the show and the thing and the flipping and like, you know, I mean, Ringo's the first. As far as like, you're a famous drummer in a band, but like, as far as we're talking 80s, Tommy could be in a band, probably maybe, you know, maybe the most recognizable guy in certainly like metal, I guess, like I would say, you know, but he was great, man.
Well, maybe Lars Ulrich from Metallica.
No offense to the other guys.
Yeah.
I paid my $16 at Joe Louis Arena. I want to see Tommy Lee. That's worth the price of admission.
You're waiting for that. You're waiting.
Amazing. I was like, how is this happening? He's not puking. He's drinking Jack. He's yelling.
Have either of you tried to ever do any kind of live drumming like that, where you're like spinning on something or hanging upside down or anything like that?
I've never done that. I'll tell you what. I was with the Smashing Pumpkins and we were doing Dodger Stadium and we were opening up for Kiss on the and the drum set was on this riser that was hanging from metal chains, and I got on that and I got seasick. I was like, I was seasick for the whole day. Yeah, I couldn't. there's no way. Yeah. So forget about this.
Yeah,
I couldn't. And And that's actually, there's a drummer, I mean, even though he was painted up, he made the drummer, I guess all those guys became like super.
Peter, Chris, you're talking about?
He's a great, man, you listen to the old stuff, man, that guy swung.
Yeah.
He had that swing thing from the New York jazz was big. That guy was great. And
I love those early kids.
and he could sing.
Yeah,
There's a couple
great singer.
But I am curious because it seems like you guys came with lists of like 80s drummers, like I said, Mutual Admiration Society.
Who do you think is the most influential of the 80s? Yourself not included.
Well, I'll name one that kind of flipped me around was Stuart Copeland. You know, It's like, because he created a new style. It's like, what? Yep. Roxanne, like, wait, where's beat one? So he created, it's hard for a drummer to come up with a style that nobody's heard of before, or it's new. It's hard. He did it. He did that.
He did. That band was very influential, and Stuart's drumming. I mean, I would listen to his hi-hat and just go, what is that? I mean, that made me really pay attention to the hi-hat. Like that's such an important part of the drum set timekeeping, and he was masterful.
Number 10 on Rolling Stone's list, in case you're keeping track. Number 10.
Okay, I like that.
He made So who else is on your list? I'm curious about both of you. Like, nominate your favorite 80s drummers.
Who else you got?
I didn't make a list.
Oh, it's all up here. And
I have speaking of rock, Alex Van Halen.
Oh, come on. Yeah. He created a sound.
Come on.
Nobody had that sound.
Nope.
Nobody. That snare drum.
The ride on the crashes, like the snare and playing that music.
Oh, dude. And you know, that it does help, like, you know, when someone says, you got to name your favorite drummer of all time, like, can we pick a category? So if they go, okay, for rock, if I have to pick one, I'm always going to go to Bonham. Now, the reason why, Bonham, I mean, he was in this band where he could do all of that.
And he died in 1980, right? Like, who knows what he could have done if he had lived in the decade.
He may have died on top, like just like Keith Moon did, you know. But the thing is, that's what Alex had, this great band where he had a voice. He could come up with parts that were like, I mean, Hot for Teacher. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, come on. I mean, just all of them, all the songs.
I think Alex, probably because of his brother. And maybe David Lee Roth a little bit, you know, who was obviously very the face and all that. But I think Alex, in the pantheon of great rock drummers, is kind of underrated.
I think so too.
Where is he on the Rolling Stones list?
51. He's above you guys.
50.
50, exactly. 51. I got another one that just came to my mind. That people would probably not think, but I guess it's 70s, 80s. But you know, Liberty DeVito from Billy Joel. There's a guy. That guy drove that band. That band was spectacular because of his energy and that going for it, kind of like the way Chad and I play.
We could all talk about, you know, the Phil Collinses and the Tommy Lees and the, you know, Alex Van Halens of the world, and that's great. But who are some of your underrated 80s drummers? Either they just haven't gone their due, or they're more like behind the scenes people like Liberty that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, there's I mean, for me, it's the guys that came up with cool like parts that were like hooks, like how Ringo would come up with hooks, and Dave Grohl was another one who come up with hooks, and Kenny as well. You know, Budgie from Susie and the Banshee with his tom style. I knew you were going to like this.
Yeah, you know, I'm happy. I perked up when you said that. Yeah,
I mean, he's like very underrated. I guess, he's probably underrated for sure. But like that, he had that tribally tom thing that they did so well, that he did so well, that set them apart. You know, was unique. And he just would come up with really interesting, you know, parts that were like not necessarily technically difficult, but melodic, and how it just, you know, he played for the song and it drove it. And I go back and listen to those records and still find things that are really new and refreshing and great. So yeah, I think he's underrated.
I'm happy to hear you say with the Creatures as well, which was even more like tribally driven. Yeah,
right.
I'm happy to hear you mentioned. I don't think Budgie made Rolling Stones list, so I just count the entire list, except for the fact that you guys are on it. That's fine, but you guys deserve to be on it neck and neck. But anyone else, Kenny, like sort of underrated session guys or anything like that?
Let's see, 80s. Well, I mean, see, some of these drummers I'm thinking of were around in the 70s too.
I was gonna say Jeff Porcaro, like he was in the 80s.
Yeah, Jeff Porcaro. I mean, he's
kind of like, he's not, he was in Toto, but he did.
Yeah,
he was like played on every record that you know of from that era. And
drummers respect him, but a lot of people may not know how cool he was.
Correct.
Drummers really was, the Bernard Purdie shuffle he did on, Rosanna, and I mean, he was extraordinary. But a lot of people they know Toto, but they don't know Jeff Porcaro. Yeah. I mean, another drummer, but he came out of the 70s, Ian Pace. I mean,
for sure. One of my favorites growing up.
I know.
Bass trucking, first song I tried to learn.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
David Big Bird. Hey, how do you do that?
Right? He's incredible. I mean, he's still in the band, and they had their stuff in it, but yeah, he was more their heyday, definitely 70s. I'm gonna go, again, drummers, the drummer's drummer, the drummer, God rest his soul, from Rush, Neil Peart.
Oh yeah, come on.
Where's he on the Rolling Stone list, Lyndsey? He's got to be up there.
Number 4. He's number 4, respectably at number 4. He's pretty high up there. I think he's the highest of a drummer that's mostly associated with the 80s to make Rolling Stones list. He's at 4. He's at 4.
I mean, everybody knows.
Yeah, I mean,
all about Neil.
What
about Phil Rudd? I know that Back in Black is 1980.
Yep.
Come on, Phil Rudd.
Come on.
He made number 86 on the list. I wrote all this down.
86?
I know you're mad now.
Phil Rudd, you go ahead and try to play like Phil Rudd. You won't. It ain't gonna happen. That's like trying to play like Charlie Watts. It ain't gonna happen. You can't do it.
And that's the thing. People don't necessarily understand. They go, the Stones and ACDC, just so simple and but
nuts.
Feel of it. There's only one.
Let's talk a little bit.
When Rick Rubin went and did his record with AC/DC in the 90s, he was instrumental in getting Phil Rudd back in the band because he knew that is the key component.
Yep.
Feel of AC/DC, everyone contributes to it, but without Phil Rudd, it's not going to be the same. It's not just where he places the beat. As simple as it is. And you can't, it's him.
I got one that people don't. He's not like Tommy Lee, like Steve Jordan. Is an incredible New York session drummer, producer, ended up with the Winos, which is Keith Richards. But I mean, this guy's everywhere, and but the musicians know who he is, but he didn't become a celebrity.
Isn't he playing in the Stones now to replace Charlie Watt? I mean, if they hire you to replace, Charlie, obviously
that was Charlie's request. When Charlie was going under a procedure before he didn't know he was going to die, he said, have Steve replace me. And Steve was good friends with Keith Richards because of, the Winos. Yep. So that was Charlie's decision. So then it just, when Charlie went, then they just said,
again, of like a very unique feel player.
Hey, I've got a story about that. I was recording percussion with the Rolling Stones, Bridges of Babylon. It's 4 a.m, and it's the Stones, and Charlie's there, and I'm playing a gourd with a brush, because it was like, it starts with acoustic guitar, jinga, ding, ding. I'm going, Mick comes up to me and goes, "Hi, mate. I love what you're doing, but don't get in the way of Charlie's hi-hat." Now, here's the point. The takeaway is Mick knew that the sound of the Stones is Charlie and his hi-hat. I mean, this is the lead singer defending his drummer. And I'm like, wow, I've never been in a band like that.
Right? Mick is a smart man. He knows.
He knows.
And the thing that I think that obviously Kenny, but what Charlie Watts was when he would play the hi-hat, which is over here, two cymbals that are close together. Lots of rock drummers play, if they're playing like this, they never stop the hi-hat. Do chop, boom, 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 papa. Charlie went do, got out of the way. Got, 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 and left that space for the snap. That's part of the groove and the sound, and that's what Mick Jagger knew.
Yeah.
This is a naive question for me. I'm not a drummer, obviously.
It might be too technical for you 80s people.
No, I'm curious. Like, you can't really teach this, right? Like, this is, you talk about feel. This can't really be taught by a drum clinic or a drum class. You just kind of have this in your blood, or you don't, right?
It's great to learn, and there's education is fantastic, and certainly now with all the videos and everything's online, you can see everybody do everything.
Yeah.
Me and Kenny were growing up, it's like nothing. You maybe saw, a Don Kirshner's rock concert.
Or in the 80s, they had those VHS tapes where you could like take a class from, someone, popping your VCR, like a drummer class, right? Remember those?
Yeah, no? I have boxes of those things. But I want to say
I have different kind of videotapes.
Oh, you were hanging around with Tommy Lee too much.
Oh no! I had exercise ones.
Jane Fonda,
sweat to the oldies.
Yeah, the thigh master, whatever it's called.
Masters.
What is it? Yeah.
Thigh masters. Yeah.
Thigh master. Thank you.
Hey, you know what? I want to say something about just being part of the 80s, which I'm sure Chad and I were in the same ballpark with this, is that, see, back then, they sold records. So I'm on 3 records that sold 40 million. That's, the record label's making 85 cents on the dollar. That's a lot of money. With that money, they can invest in new bands. So my point is, Mellencamp, we'd spend a whole year making a record, whole year. And if you didn't like these songs, you throw them away and start again. We would work like the way John did it, because he wanted to get value out of us. We'd work from 11 in the morning to 5 at night, take a 2-hour dinner break, come back at 7 to 11. Sometimes we'd play basketball and be guys, but dude, it was like, it was guys and in some cases women hanging out and muscling out ideas. You don't have that now. There's no budget for that unless you're in a band that has a budget, like Foo Fighters. But we would sit there and muscle on. John would demand, after Jack and Diane became a hit, every time he'd play a song on acoustic guitar, and he admitted, my songs all sound the same. I'm going, no shit. And after he'd play it twice, he'd look at me. It was the same song. He'd go, what do you got, Aronoff? And I'd be like, why are you always picking on me? But the reason why, he was smart enough to go like, well, what he was saying was like, I need you to make me another $1 billion. You know what I mean? He was he
come up with the catchiest beat you ever thought of.
Exactly.
My same old thing. Yeah.
And this is the type of stuff that got worked out in hanging out and muscling it out and bands being together, and there were budgets for that, right? Same with you guys,
that's
right?
kind of how the Chili Peppers work together. You write in the moment.
Yeah. To your point, it's now record companies are like the bank. It's like, if they don't get their returns right away, and sorry, the fourth quarter's coming. Oh, you didn't sell us enough, so you're out, and we'll go on to the next thing. And bands are not allowed to develop like a band like REM or U2 or Chili Peppers. Like your first 2 or 3 records, you're just learning how to be a band and like how to write songs and you become hopefully better at it. But if you're not given that opportunity, like Ken says, to work and try and make mistakes and fall down and get up, and if you don't have that opportunity, then those bands wouldn't be around it, and
and in the case of the Chili Peppers, actually, even before you joined them for Mother's Milk Challenge, Mother's Milk was, you joined at a great time. It was like the big breakthrough, but like they'd kind of steadily been rising throughout the 80s. Each album was a little bit bigger than the next one, a little bit more radio.
On an alternative college level,
right.
not in a like.
But they were allowed to have that kind of career path. So like, how many albums?
80,000 records, maybe 80,000 records. That's like now
that kind of slow build. That kind of slow build up to what was Mother's Milk, like the 4th album, the 5th album by the
4th album.
Yeah, 4 albums in that or like you mentioned The Cure earlier, they didn't really break until they'd been around for several years with Head on the Door was really kind of like their first really big album. Like that doesn't happen now. It really doesn't.
You mentioned somebody who's actually was an underrated drummer. I was one of the guys going, I guess, but he was iconic in that band. Larry Mullins Jr.
Yeah. And U2. Yeah. I'm really sad that he's not going to be part of these shows that U2 are doing in Vegas later this year because he's recovering from, I believe, a back injury. But yeah, he just, so you know, he just made it onto Rolling Stone's list. Yeah. You and Chad can fill in for U2.
Chad and I,
that's what we do.
Chad and I, we're the Sub Brothers. The Sub Brothers. You need a drummer? Hey, you want to take the first half?
Step Brothers, Sub Brothers.
Sub Brothers.
In the meantime, Larry Mullen is number 96 on Rolling Stone's list. For those
96!
who care, just That's 2 spots above Steven Adler, by the way, at number 98. I have my list.
See, that's another drummer. That's another drummer that you can't play like him. He has a swing. He's got a thing, you know. And what people don't realize is that the drummer is like an engine in a car. You take the engine out, put another engine in, car ain't the same. Mm-hmm. And so how much did these drummers, I dare you, ask Axl Rose what he thinks of Steven Adler. He thought he was great because he had this swing and it made him be able to sing a certain way. It's way more involved than just how much technique you have. There's all this other stuff going on.
Well, I have an honorable mention for the list that Chad might appreciate because I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up in front of the television set in the 80s. How many kids do you think grew up in the 80s who decided to take up the drums because of Animal from the Muppets? He was like the role model for a lot of Gen X drummers, I imagine. I know it's a random question, but I know you have an Animal jacket. I've seen you wear it. Right?
I love Animal. Who doesn't love it? Animals?
I know.
It's the best. Animal, you know, I mean, is he still going? Do you know?
Animal will never quit. Animal is still going as far as I know. I mean, I saw
Sesame Street and like Buddy Rich had the drum battle, like a famous drum battle with Animal. Like that would be a real bucket list for me to go to. Do you know anyone on Sesame Street? Anybody?
I think Dave Grohl actually.
He battled? Of course he did.
But wait, the Chili Peppers were supposed to be on Sesame Street and got turned down. This is a famous story.
They didn't like some of our antics.
I think you're the only artist to be turned down.
Maybe it was your antics.
I think it was the socks. I think they only like socks if they're sock puppets, not socks.
Yeah, but that's before my time. I mean, family.
Who was the drummer that played Animal's parts? Because that guy was bad mofo.
Yeah, good question. I don't know.
That guy was a bad mofo.
Yeah. He's definitely an underrated. He should be up high on the Rolling Stone.
I have to look that up, but he was.
I heard he was supposedly a cross between Ginger Baker and Keith Moon were their inspirations for Animal. Do you know? Is that right, Lyndsey? Or you don't know?
We've talked about this before. I definitely obviously see the Keith Moon thing because of the personality of him being animalistic and crazy. I'm actually looking this up right now. Animal was performed by Frank Oz.
Oz?
But that was the drumming was performed by a guy named Ronnie Verrell up until Ronnie died in 2002. He was an English jazz drummer. He drummed in a bunch of famous big bands. He was born in 1926, so he was already a seasoned drummer by the time. He drummed for Jack Parnell, and he provided the drumming for Animal. We now know, and he's number 1 on the most underrated list. The guy who gave Animal his sound, his feel. You can't teach that in a drum clinic. How to drum like a Muppet. I'm glad we cleared this up. I feel like Animal needs to
Well, when Modern Drummer was like the thing, he should have gotten the cover one.
Right? Sure. I mean, at any point, Lyndsey, he's at like how many kids, and that's when you get inspired. Right. Whether it's watching that Sullivan Show or watching MTV and Tommy Lee spinning or whatever it is. You have many kids watching something.
Yeah.
Come on, who doesn't want to do that?
Hey, I just thought of another drummer that he's probably not on the list, but he's might be underrated because the parts are simple, but the feel is amazing. And it's Stan Lynch from the Petty.
Oh yeah, that whole
You know what I
band is
mean?
amazing.
Dude, I mean,
Oh yeah.
we used to sit there and listen to those
Amazing.
albums. We go like, why is it so great? And we couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. Another amazing field drummer. What
Yeah.
about Max? What about Max Mighty Max Weinberg?
Oh yeah, another one. Yeah, holy shit.
The list could go on. I actually want to maybe sort of end by doing kind of a lightning round of some of the people that, and by the way, Max Weinberg is on Rolling Stone's list at number 55. Yeah. But we haven't really talked about, we've talked about a lot of men, and we've talked about a Muppet who.
Yeah, let's talk about the ladies.
Well, there's, I mean, I hate to say it. Obviously, there's a lot of great female drummers, but there weren't as many in the 80s.
Gina Shock.
Let's talk about Gina Shock.
Yeah, she's probably number one, the most popular.
Great. You know what? So much that Mellencamp brought her into our studio to record, and I had to watch. And I was going, what the?
When was that?
They brought her, and I don't think she made the record, but it was the after American Fool. We were doing Pink Houses. We had the record. He brought her in.
Sheila E. Can we talk about Sheila E. for a second? And Karen Carpenter, too, who, sadly died in 83.
She was incredible.
Amazing.
She was incredible.
Yeah.
Did you ever see her do that Buddy Rich? She could do Buddy Rich stuff.
See, there's some clips on the old YouTube of her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sheila E., I did an interview recently for Sheila E. timed with, tragically the 40th anniversary of Karen Carpenter passing away. And Sheila E. said that was the first female drummer she ever saw on TV and one of her biggest inspirations. Sheila E. will, anytime you want to talk to Sheila E. about Karen Carpenter, she will say yes. She loves to give her a shout out. And Sheila E. was, I think, probably that for, a lot of, again, Gen X kids sitting in front of TV, they're watching MTV and they're seeing this glamorous, literally glamorous. She had a song called Glamorous Life, but you're seeing this glamorous woman who's drumming standing up, and she's in like all the, the Prince looking costumes and, just being badass. And, she's drummed for so many people. She drummed on the Oscars, for that Under the Sea. So like, she's at number 58 on the list of Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I love it that she's on top of us.
She's below us.
No.
What that mean? Lyndsey.
Yes, Chad.
Who else that people talk about? They kind of, but it is, for metal guys. I would say Dave Lombardo from Slayer.
Oh, dude.
Where's he?
47.
Yeah.
What
about Nico McBrain? Nico, is he? But he's
with Iron Man. Is he on it?
I don't think I saw him on the list.
Wow.
Lars? He's on our list. Lars was not on Rolling Stone's list. I don't think he was, because I didn't write a note. I had his name down on my notes, but I did not put a number next to it. I don't know, because you were talking about Tommy Lee earlier, and Lars is another one of those drummers who is also a star, and people know him as well as they know anyone else, or maybe even better than they know other people.
I'm the best drummer.
I mean, I'll double check, but I don't remember seeing him on the list. I feel like I remember actually looking for him and being like, that's weird. Why is he not on? We'll talk about his drumming for a minute, and he's obviously a heavy hitter.
Metallica, that band in the 80s, they changed, their style of music, and those first three records, and Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, the drumming, the playing, the whole thing. Like, no one was doing that. Yeah. So it's like the parts that he came up with, and it's really, really like special stuff.
It's definitely a big omission for sure. Well, let's wrap up by, let me just say in a couple of the other, like I said, I went over this list pretty hard. Number 70 on Rolling Stone's list was Tommy Ramone from the Ramones.
Oh, dude. Go ahead. Try to play like him.
Exactly. That's another one. That's
dude,
like a
dare you to try to play like that. You'll burn
tried.
Out. Dude. I can't keep that with one hand.
People who aren't drummers or don't know much about drumming probably think it's easy to drum like that because it's deceptively simple sounding to the ear, their songs at least. But it's not easy, apparently.
No.
He's a great drummer, 100%. And he didn't even want to be the drummer.
Is that
he wasn't the drummer.
He didn't? Whoa.
No, he was like the producer, kind of like.
Oh, wow.
They didn't have a drummer. And they're like, he goes, I'll play.
Wow. All right. Tony Thompson, Chic, Power Station in the 80s. Of course.
I was a friend of his. He was incredible. Power Station, the Chic. Yeah. Big drum sound. That big drum sound he got.
Clem Burke from Blondie is on the list.
Oh my God. How do we forget about him?
Yeah, exactly.
He's number 61, which is three slots above you, Chad, and 5 slots above you, Kenny.
Okay.
You're in the 60s. The 60s is a good group to be in.
Yeah.
I mean, what would Blondie would not be the same without him drumming.
Nope. No.
And then one spot above him, a 70s artist, 60s artist, but obviously had a lot of hits in the 80s as well. Mick Fleetwood is at number 6.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
I'm making you guys so mad. It's not my list.
Oh, my God. He's great. He's
like,
I know. He's so big we couldn't see him.
Exactly. And I know there's going to be more coming.
Oh, dude, that Mick Fleetwood. I mean, those parts. I've had to play those parts when I was in the music cares honoring Fleetwood Mac, and I had to write. I'm like, what? Where's beat 1?
You were at that event? That was like the last time that Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks ever appeared together.
Yes, I played at that one. I played with like 9 artists, and they at Radio City Music Hall. I got another drummer.
Yep.
Don Henley.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I think of him in the 80s, at least, as more of a, just a pop star almost. But
yeah, because Don Henley was more himself, not in the Eagles in the 80s. But so Eagles, what? Dude, those parts and singing.
Yeah.
Oh, if we're getting into singing and
that's drumming, what I wanted to ask about.
Levon Helm. Come on, try to play like him.
How hard? I mean, I know this is a naive question, but as I've made very clear, I'm not a drummer or musician myself. Like, we've mentioned Phil Collins also as well. Like I mentioned Sheila E. How hard is it to drum and sing at the same time? It seems like it would be hard. It's like walking and chewing gum, but like on steroids. How hard is that?
I can't do. I mean, I can go, yeah.
That's exactly. I learned what he did in Chicken Foot. You go, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can do football vocals. Man, I used to watch Taylor sing and play.
Oh man.
And he, he's very energetic and he's playing all this like
Taylor Hawkins. I assume you're.
Yes, sorry, Taylor Hawkins. And I'm like, it's like high in Foo Fighters, high energy, and like his side bands and stuff. And it's I guess it's just like another muscle, you get used to it, and it's just, to me, it's like that takes a lot of energy, a lot of breath, and and then you're exerting that physical energy playing the drums. That's what he did. It was really something to me. I was like, wow, man.
Yeah.
You're doing that.
I know. To me too. I thought the same thing.
How hard is it to stand and drum? I mentioned
a little bit of this.
Yeah, it's a little.
It's actually another limb. I mean, literally, it's another 2 hands, 2 feet, and then the voice.
I'm curious how hard it is. I don't know how much experience you guys have doing this, but standing and drumming. We mentioned Sheila E. Another one that comes to mind is Slim Jim Phantom from the Stray Cats would kind of do that standing and drumming. Is that easier or harder? Do you guys ever play that way?
Nope.
It's not on me either, but I would imagine the hardest part is that bass drum.
Right?
How do you get the pedal to come off? I don't
know.
That's weird.
He's great at it.
I know.
Like, obviously, he was doing that a long time. Did you ever ask him, Lyndsey, like when he started playing standing up, was he ever a sit-down drummer?
Actually, I think you and I talked to him about that on Sirius, but I forget the name, but he saw it like in a photo of like some famous 50s drummer you might offhand know, but like, someone who played with like Eddie Cochran or Buddy Holly or someone like that. I'm sorry, I don't have it at the top of mind, but he like literally saw it in a photo of these artists, these rockabilly artists that he idolized, and just imitated because he thought it looked cool. I don't think it was like, he wasn't thinking it would like sound better or be easy or anything, but it stuck. And then it kind of was how he drummed from most of the time from then on, but it was for the look of it. He just thought it looked really cool. And like on the back of an album cover, he saw it, I believe.
I can see like Brian Setzer says, I'm looking for a drummer who can stand. And they auditioned 50 drummers, nobody can play.
There aren't that many. The other one I can think of is more 90s, but like Andy Sturmer from Jellyfish, who was the front man of Jellyfish. He stood and drummed. He sang and stood and drummed at the same time.
What about, wasn't there a drummer played a Procol Harum that stood? Did that drummer stand?
You stand up? I don't know.
Anyway, we got
it's not common. It's definitely not common that we're like struggling to think of another person. I want to, just mention one more other artist that was on, or drummer that was on this list, this Rolling Stone list, because we were talking about Zappa earlier, and being a child of the 80s, I came across this person via Missing Persons, which is Terry Bozzio.
Oh God, yeah.
I thought about Terry. You're right, but I forgot. Like, of course, Missing Persons, and like, he was cool. He was again, like, he was the huge part of that. Being a drummer out front kind of guy, a la Tommy Lee. He was, him and Dale.
He kind of gave
so physical and incredible.
Yeah, and from what I recall, like, Missing Persons kind of got a little bit of, cred among, the classic rockers or the prog rockers or whatever, who normally wouldn't give a new wave, quote unquote, new wave band fronted by someone who looked like Dale a chance, because of this Zappa connection, because of Warren Cucurullo and Terry Bozzio being in the band. So,
musically, they were.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They were amazing. Like, her voice was like, is what it is, kind of, unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some people like it, some people don't. It happens, but like the band and the music, next level. Like,
next level.
Not your simple, this is the best I can do. Like, those guys can do anything.
Yeah.
Well, I want to wrap up by asking you guys. I started off by saying that on this controversial Rolling Stone list, you were at number 66 and number 64, which, could be up for debate whether you should be higher up or not, but you did make a pretty illustrious list of the 100 greatest drummers of all time, according to Rolling Stone. And that was, and you're of just a handful of 80s drummers that we've kind of discussed here today. How do you feel about being on that list with all these people and in the place you're at? How does it feel?
You go, Chad, first.
I don't put a lot of into the list. And this about me, Lyndsey. You like the award shows and the
Hall of Fame and all of that. I get very invested.
That's your thing. I get it. I don't. But it's always nice to be recognized, by whomever, but like, it's probably some pencil pushing whatever nerds, and who knows. But again, it's like, I'm just happy to have a job and be playing and doing what I love to do, and people want to come to see us and Chili Peppers, and I get to play with my friends and do what I love, and so that's great. But the haters, I always get Kenny doesn't, because I don't think so, because Ken's like, he could do anything and has proven that many, many times. Most people are like, oh, I don't really, Chad's overrated and he just plays the beat over and over and the Chili Peppers aren't that good. Like, they're always going to say, that's okay.
I get that.
Look, Kenny and I, we don't play for drummers. We play for the people that want to make the music, that want to tap their feet, that want to do this and do this. I'm not playing for drummers. I love the drums, and I'm amazed by the technical ability of everybody. And some of these guys are technically, that's why they're on the list. But like, I just want to make it feel good, play what's right for the song, have fun with my friends. And if I can just do that.
I think that's what drumming's all about. It's probably the most collaborative. I mean, I know people do drum solos, drum solos are a thing, and certainly was a thing in the 80s. But at the end of the day, drummers have to be collaborative.
2 hours. It's like, you need the drums is basically an accompaniment instrument. You need other people to play with. That's music. Or else
there's no question the drummer will motivate the band, which motivates the audience, and then it goes back and forth. Then when the audience is motivated, and humans are feeling creatures, they can feel it and see it. They may not be able to define it. So the drummer's making the band, and then the audience feels it. That's what a drummer does.
Well, can I end this? I mean, by asking you guys for your definitive 80s moment of your respective careers. If you haven't already, we've heard some good stories already, but is there one moment? I know that obviously, Chad, you joined the Peppers at sort of the tail end of the 80s. You were in other bands before that, one of which I remember opened for The Alarm at one time in Michigan. So There you go. Toby Red. But what is like your definitive 80s moment? It could be a certain concert. It could be a certain song. Certain, just anything. That top.
Well, for me, mine didn't come so much with drumming, but from drumming, playing in not with the Chili Peppers before, in the band that opened for The Alarm. Early on, I wanted to play drums. I love playing music, but I wanted to get girls. And so this girl we were playing, So this girl came to the bar we were playing at in Detroit, and I'd seen her a few times, and I was always kind of trying to chat her up and talk to her. And finally, like, tonight's going to be the night. Like, I can tell it's going to happen. We go, I drive her home. I'm really drunk. One thing leads to another. Boom, boom, boom. I go to jail. And
wait, one thing leads to another. I go to jail. You skipped over something.
I'm going to skip over the stop in the middle of the road in the snowstorm. I got to skip over that part.
All right.
I have my leather pants around my knees. I hit a car. Next thing you know. Anyway.
As one does. Next thing you know. Okay, carry on.
And so I had to, I literally was in jail for 30 days.
Holy
I did 30.
cow.
You're talking to a hardened criminal.
30, that's like
and
too
this
much.
is the one that
Days in the hole. Yeah, here we are.
30 days in the hole.
Yeah, this might be the drum that played that. Oh yeah, come on in, man. Yeah,
I feel like maybe that's the note to end it on, like the bad boy drummer, the wild forgotten 80s. Like, what an 80s story, 80s drummer story.
And Stella wants to say goodbye to her.
I got arrested at a gig once.
Well, well, now you say that, I have to hear that story.
All right,
I'll just go real quick because I want to be like buddies with Chad in that same realm. I don't want to leave him in jail by himself. I said, John, I'm going to throw my stuff in the audience. And he says, don't do it. I'm like, no, I'm doing it. I told him a week before I was going to do it. John's thinking, So I walk out for the encore, so I'm doing it. He says, nah, don't do it. I said, that. Took shirt, threw it all, took my sneakers. Only thing left I had was boxer shorts on. And I'm playing. Yeah, people got all the sweaty clothes are going out there. I go off stage, some guy comes up to me in a jacket, Ty says, hey, are you the drummer? I'm like, yeah, you want me to sign something? He pulls out a badge, says, you can't take your clothes off here in Illinois, I'm like, what? And then John steps in, and then the promoter comes in and starts the whole scene. It was all staged, but I didn't know that. I'm handcuffed, and I'm being brought backstage to a room, and I'm crapping in my pants. All of a sudden, another cop comes in. It's a female cop. And then she says, you're in deep shit. Like, what the, I mean, come on. She takes her hat off, and the hair comes down.
It was a stripper?
Yep. Yeah. Well, then John walks in with Elaine Irwin, his girlfriend. How's it going, Kenny? How's it going? And they're like, oh, God, the things we have to do.
The 80s were a magical time. They were the best of times. They were the best of times. I've had the best of time talking with you guys. This has been so much fun. You guys really do, keep it funky. This was a good time. So a special thanks to Kenny Aronoff and Chad Smith, and to everyone out there listening. Remember to give us Totally 80s some love with a rate and review on your favorite podcast platform, and I will catch you next time.
This was Totally 80s, the podcast dedicated to the music of the greatest decade ever. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Totally 80s, and please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until our next episode, catch you on the flip side.